Hello everyone, I'm Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and money color commentator. On today's show, Senior Strategic Planning, part one in our series on managing your retirement. Well, welcome to our first segment. We're talking about people who are already in retirement, how to manage their retirement. And I'm already thinking senior strategic thinking, senior strategic strategies, tactics. I'm trying to look at all my ideas that I can to make my most prosperous income and less taxes and net spendable money. That's my goal. So when I'm looking at managing my retirement, I just want to prepare. Now, it doesn't always go to easy sailing out on the seas of retirement, right? In fact, it says you can't guarantee that retirement will be smooth sailing, but what you can do is you can prepare to help you weather the challenges. There are many challenges out there. One of the things that I like to do right away is to try to find out my resources and my assets. One of those ideas is, first thing when I'm in retirement, I should really look heavily into redesigning my portfolio. If I'm in the market, how much should I be in the market? In my conservative estimate, not much. But I still want to be in some of that to get a little bit of inflation. I need help in the cost of living. The power of my purchasing dollar could be eroded year after year, and I can't always depend on Social Security to come through and give me a bump. As I've said before, in the last 8 years, 3 of those years, we didn't get any increase. So keep in mind, I do want to be in the market, but I want to be in a very low risk mutual fund or a low risk ETF. I need to have some numbers that are going to bump me and give me my inflation, give me a little cost of living boost. So I want to look at that, but I'm going to have to redesign it. If you're already retired and you're thinking about retiring for 20, 25, even 30 years, which is not unreasonable, you need to start looking at how you're going to redesign your portfolio to more of a conservative nature and to really be able to live with it. Remember, before you talk about securities in your retirement, you need to do a risk tolerance test. You need to find out your psychonomics. What is your profile in regards to risk and reward? Before you do anything in the market, always know that you could lose your money. And so be advised. If you went through the 2008 debacle and you're a baby boomer, you're already on red alert. You already have your hands really thinking about moving things from maybe a more security and more aggressive all the way over to a more conservative scenario. So everybody's different. If you feel like this is you have a lot of extra money to do this and you just want to grow your estate, that's okay. But for most Americans, they got to kind of watch their dollar on this issue, and watching it in your portfolio is a big deal. Now, once I've known that, I'm always trying to look at 3 areas. I want to start thinking and dividing the camp of my resources into 3 distinct channels. The first channel is, what are all my taxable sources of income? Then my second one is what are all my deferred resources and income? And what are my tax-free sources? So taxable, tax-deferred, and tax-free. And keep in mind, just for seniors, just a little heads up, remember, municipal bond income will be tax-free in certain jurisdictions of the code. It could be federally tax-free, or maybe state tax-free, or even in your local town, municipal tax-free. But keep in mind, all bond income flows over to your Social Security income, provisional income test, and counts as income in regards to taxation for Social Security. So when I say tax-free, I'm going to have a big asterisk by municipal bond income. It may very well be tax-free in its certain tax jurisdiction, but it will always be included in your Social Security provisional income test to find out if your Social Security benefits get taxed. So I've now separated all 3, and so I already know taxable, tax-deferred, and now tax-free. I also want to look at making sure that I have my emergency fund already in place. Once you do this, you shouldn't have to worry about it until you actually have an emergency. I'm always trying to get cash equivalents, money markets, very short-term CDs, anything that I can keep in liquidity so that I can use it for emergency funds. Listen, I have a home. I'll have a deductible. What if I need repairs on my home? I'll have a deductible to pay. If I have an auto, I'll have a deductible to pay in case I have an accident. If I'm even in Medicare, some of us still have to pay some form of maybe a copay or some deductible depending upon your Medigap plan. You'll just have to see all those. You have to have that all in an account ready to go. And once you've funded it and it's liquid, then you can kind of kick back a little bit because your emergency fund's taken care of. Remember, In traditional emergency funds, we also have to accommodate 90 days, maybe 120 days of unemployment. But now that we're retired, that's not our problem. What our real problem is now is just making sure we funded our emergency account, our emergency area, so that we can always use it for deductibles for home, auto, anything that Medicare doesn't cover, and maybe even long-term care deductibles or premiums that you're going to be using maybe for later on elder care. So those are the areas that I want to look at. I want to always keep those up first, and I want to make my marketing decisions based on my risk tolerance test and my psychonomics, so I can build a very solid financial profile on myself. And I always want to be able to use that as my reference point going forward on any decisions I make. So if you haven't taken the test, you can write me, steve@lifesizesolutions.com. I'll send you the test. And if you have a spouse, do your test separately. Don't cheat and look at each other's answers. Go ahead and do that. It'll be really helpful. Another thing I want to talk about, and you'd say, Steve, this should be already knowledgeable in the senior community, but it isn't. When I'm looking at very areas of 70 and a half, I have to tell you, I cannot tell you how many seniors forget that they have required minimum distributions at age 70 and a half. And the IRS is not going to be that forgiving if you don't actually take the kind of withdrawals or income stream based on your total qualified plan holdings. You need to really look at this area. If whatever you don't take out, the difference between what you should have taken out and what you did take out, that difference could be taxed at 50%. It's punitive. It's harsh. And remember, if you're in this the first year and you might have made a mistake on this, there could be, and I say could be just because everybody's jurisdiction is a little different in how they approach the IRS, but you could maybe unwind it, fix it, and then go back to what you should have been doing the first year. After that, I think it's going to be really tough. But the first thing you want to do is remember, wake up. 70 and a half is coming. And when it does, did you take the total qualified plan monies that you have, looked at your life expectancy, and got the proper number? My advice, don't even try to do this yourself. Always use a financial advisor so that you can actually get a good qualified person that understands retirement and will make sure that you're taking out the exact minimum required. It's mandatory. Now keep in mind, there's a few exceptions to the rule. The one that really comes to my mind, that's a big one, is you could send forward from 70 and a half. You could use a qualified longevity annuity contract to push as much as 25% of your qualified plans into the future, as long as it doesn't exceed $125,000. And that's both for mom and dad. So if you're a married couple right now and you're saying, wow, I could actually send 125 apiece, $250,000 to the future, I could delay some of my RMDs all the way out to age 85. Keep in mind, if you're going to delay your RMDs by pushing it out to age 85, that gives it a lot more time to accumulate. You could even buy blocks of income in advance. And the biggest issue is it lowers your tax bill, ordinary tax bill. And if you're lowering your income tax, that means you're lowering your threshold of Social Security taxation. Listen, it could help so much that you might be exposed to Tier 2 taxation on Social Security and drop to Tier 1. Or you could be in Tier 1 taxation in Social Security and drop to Tier none. That's what I want to go. Tier 2, Tier 1. Oh, I don't want to be in any tier. Tier none. So I'm looking at different ways. I have to know the penalties. I want to know my income needs, and I want to be able to manage my taxes. So those three areas, again, when I'm talking about taxation, taxable, tax deferred, and tax-free. Listen, we have to have a plan. We have to have a budget. We have to. And if you say, Steve, I don't have a budget, if you write me at steve@lifesizesolutions.com, I'll send you a budget that you can look at and work, the very ones we hand out in our seminars, the ones that I use, and you'll be able to help you understand it. And besides having an annual plan, I say you need to look a little further into the future. A little bit more, not as detailed as our annual budget, but you need to have a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, and a 15-year plan. As you go out to 10 years and 15 years, I don't need to be as detailed about it. I just need to know what's coming, the numbers that are coming. Remember, we actually can dice or actually make 3 distinct phases. I dice them up in 3 phases called the go-go years, the slow-go years, and the no-go years. The slow-go years, I say now, are going to be from probably 65 to 75. And then you're going to have the slow go years where you still want to go out and do things, but it's not as great. You're slowing down. You're probably going to dinner at 4:30. And then, of course, the no-go years where you're staying home a lot. You're in your 80s and 90s. You're just kind of watching yourself. You're a little more conservative about the way you do things. But you're going to have expenses in your later life. Some of it's going to be assisted home care living. So if I could delay some of that on my RMDs and send it into the future, that's exactly where I might need it the most. So I want to be able to do that, especially a person like myself. My goal, assisted home living. So when we're managing our income, one of the first things is we need to be strategic about it as seniors so that we keep more of our money and make our money work hard for us. Don't forget to watch our next segment on converting assets into income, part 2 in our series on managing your retirement. And keep in mind, before moving forward with any of the ideas on our show, always check with your tax consultant, legal counsel, or financial advisor. You've been watching Steve Savant's Money, the name of the game.